Welcome to the Institution for Higher Learning in Common Law, where we train people not to be sheep. And now for your host, Professor Brad Parsons. Brad, are you geared up and ready to go?
Yes, thank you very much, Joseph.
All right.
Good evening. Last week we ended up by partially covering the Fourth Amendment, and this week we'll delve into it in more detail. Sovereignty itself is, of course, not subject to law, for it is the author and source of law. But in our system, while sovereign powers are delegated to the agencies of government, sovereignty itself remains with the people, by whom and for whom all government exists and acts. The law is the definition and limitation of power. It is indeed quite true that there must always be lodged somewhere, and in some person or body, the authority of final decision, and in many cases of mere administration, the responsibility is purely political. No appeal lying except ultimate tribunal of the public judgment exercised under either in the pressure of opinion or by means of the suffrage. But the fundamental rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, considered as an individual possession, are secured by those maxims of constitutional law which are the monuments showing that various progress of the race in securing to men the blessings of civilization under the reign of just and equal laws, so that in the famous language of the Massachusetts Bill of Rights, the government of the Commonwealth, quote, may be a government of laws and not of men. For the very idea that one man may be compelled to hold his life, or the things of living, or any material right essential to the enjoyment of life, at the mere will of another, seems to be intolerable in any country where freedom prevails, as being the essence of slavery itself. Close quote. The term effects covers those things of yours that are not documents, like your mode of conveyance, travel, outbuildings, etc. Texas just passed a law called the Castle Law, which states that your car, part of your home, and you are as secure there as though you were in your home. Joseph, why don't we open it up now and just see if we can talk about this. Sometimes this gets a little confusing when we start talking about persons, places, and effects and whatnot.
Hold on.
Okay, it sounds like you're open now.
Are we good?
Yes,
there we
now
go.
they're open.
All right, I have one, Brad.
Go ahead.
If everything for me seems to come back to traffic issues these days, of course, but if
I'm sorry, but I'm having a real hard time hearing you. Can you either speak up or turn your volume up or something?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's much better.
All right. As it stands, if you get pulled over by law enforcement, which the term law enforcement, in my opinion, is a bit ludicrous, but
can you spell that?
Using the Castle Law, I've seen them yank people out of their cars. How does the Castle Law work when most law enforcement doesn't even know the law that they're supposed to be upholding?
Well, if they don't know it, then I hope we can teach them. How does the Castle Law work? It's worked for me. I had on two occasions, a police officer pulled me over, and I have had a license to carry in the past, and that still shows up on my license. And the police officer asked me why I didn't present my license to carry, and I said, I don't have one. He said, yes, you do. And I said, no, I don't. And he said, yes, you do. And I said, no, it's expired, and I don't have it. I don't carry it. And he said, do you have any guns in the car with you? And I said, I don't want to talk about that in one case. In the other case, I had my weapon underneath my shirt, and as I was being pulled over, I took it out and just laid it on the seat in its holster. And he came up, and when he saw that, he said, why have you got a gun there? And I said, to protect myself. And he said, well, you need to give that to me. And I said, no, I don't. I'm invoking the castle law. This is like my home. You're not in any danger, but that gun stays here. And he paused for a minute. He said, okay. So obviously some of them know. Some of them have received the training.
I personally have never had a concealed permit, so if they pull me over and I have my weapon sitting on the seat, I'm still allowed to own a gun without registering it in the state of Texas.
Absolutely.
But they still, I've had it happen in Atlanta because they have the same rules. They still want to take it from you until they're done with their stop.
Well, I told you what I told the guy, and he said, okay. I can't. I mean, police officers are going to do pretty much what they want to do, and if they want to violate the law, we can take them to court and take them to task for it. But I do not recommend ever disobeying one that's got a gun on his hip, for crying out loud. I mean, we know that there have been many cases unjustified shootings by police officers, and I certainly don't want to see any of you in that position. I'm not going to put myself there. If he'd have told me, hand over the weapon, I would have done it. Now, where we went after that is something else again. But any other questions?
I was pulled over in Pennsylvania one night. They were doing one of those illegal random stop things.
Yeah.
And they asked me if I had a gun in the car that he needed to know about. My answer was, there's nothing in this car that you need to know about.
And that's not a lie.
That was the absolute truth.
Yep.
I actually got his supervisor over. I refused because since it was an illegal stop, when they were done with me, they said, move on. I said, no, you stop me. I want to talk to your supervisor. I'm staying right here. And I blocked the highway until a supervisor came up. And then I got his supervisor's card. If I would have known what I needed to know, I would have taken him to court.
Yeah. I was discussing this with somebody the other day. Police officers are trained and believe, for the most part, that they're doing the right thing. I did it for 18 years, and I believed that I was doing the right thing. I believed that I was in the law. When I asked, right in my first part of my professional career, I saw an incongruity because I knew that when I pulled somebody over that I had arrested them. And I said, how does that work with the Fourth Amendment? Because I don't have an affidavit, I don't have a warrant, I don't have anything. And I was told exactly that. Well, this is an exception to the Constitution. I was, oh, okay, I can buy that, sure. and so anytime I had a question about something like that, that's what I was told. This is an exception to the Constitution. There are exceptions, so okay. I mean, they wouldn't lie to me, would they? And I'm sure the same thing still happens today. They're trained that way. So, anybody else? You started to talk about something about the castle law, Joseph.
Yeah, it would be great to get that in our transportation script. I think it's very important that you have your book in your car, that you can run that officer through the questions before you get into any discussions about what you have. Let me have your driver's license, registration, your insurance. All of that is designed to get you to start talking. When he runs your tags, he knows whose car it is, and he knows that there's insurance on the car.